Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Clock podcast with Rick Gorman and Scott Chandler. We are back for episode 4, and this one's going to be an interesting one. I'll introduce that in a second because we're going to probably be a little bit out of order. This is probably an episode that should have happened, maybe in episode 2. But, Scott, welcome back to the podcast. What's going on?
Yeah, nice to be back. How was the week of retirement in the Rick Gorman world?
I would say it was... It's kind of a norm for me right now. Still trying to obviously figure out what I'm doing every single day. Had some busy things in the last week. Finished up doing a basketball clinic. Also been working with the North End of Youth Center. Going to be running their summer training this year. So doing a lot of prep with that, as well as just kind of getting outside. And I'm going to explain after you talk about the brewery. I'm going to talk about one thing that I got this week, which I think people should probably do a little more. So, was it a great week? Yeah, I mean, I guess, you didn't have to get up and go to work. But, was it anything exciting in terms of taking some wild trip or whatever? No, it was kind of down on that. So how about you?
Not a bad week, I would say. I kept busy, but nothing out of the ordinary. I don't think I did anything where I went way outside my comfort zone, which I think I promised myself I would do every week. I don't think I did anything like that this week. How about you? You outside your comfort zone with anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing some searching. I'm doing some really thinking, probably too much in my head on some stuff. That can kind of weigh you down a little bit. So, you got to balance, trying to figure stuff out a little bit by more just enjoying stuff or whatever. So we did have a responder last week that commented on your things that you do during the week. So I think I know the Wildcats know this, but I don't think the casual listener to it. What's this all about? A daily tubby, and what do you do in the tub?
Well, that's a personal question. Come on. No, so I work out, and then I come home and I'll grab the newspaper and I'll read the newspaper in the tub. And calling it a tubby's a little weird. I don't know if I want to call it a tubby.
You use that word, not me.
I don't think so. I think that's a little projection. But anyhow, so I like to read the newspaper, do a couple of puzzles, and I'm not in there for days, or I'm in there for maybe an hour and a half. But I enjoy that. I enjoy that downtime. And I put on some music. I'll put on, if it's a nice day, I'll put on a little Jimmy Buffett. If it's not a nice day, I'll put on a little Neil Young, something a little more somber. But yeah, that's and that's not all I do. Then so I'll read a newspaper, do a couple of puzzles. Then I'll typically
wait. You do a puzzle in the tub?
Yeah, I do the Boston Globe has a jumble, has a crossword puzzle, which I know you're not a big fan of doing crossword puzzles, but has a jumble, has a crossword puzzle, and has Sudoku. And Sudoku gets harder during the week, so I'm in there a little longer on Saturday than I am on Monday.
So this is a topic we got to get off quickly, but one young listener wanted to know, and I actually asked you this question before. So if you're in there for an extended period of time, how do you keep the water warm?
Yeah, it's actually called technology. They have stuff within the whirlpool tub itself. There's a mechanism that keeps it warm. So I know you're not familiar with that either. So it's not. Yeah.
Well, I don't.
It's actually very comfortable.
I don't have a tub, so yeah. But this was way too much information for a lot of people. But thanks for sharing the tub.
Well, it's time. It's time for you to expand. I think you should look into getting a tub because it's soothing.
Well, my place does not have a tub, and I'm not spending money to buy a tub. So.
Okay.
All right. Let's get to episode again. I say it every week, and I will probably start off saying it every week that we do appreciate your feedback, and we've got a lot of really interesting feedback. And one of the things was I think some people felt we missed a step in the process. And actually, after hearing from a few people, I totally agree. So we're entitling this one in honor of D. Wade and LeBron James. We're going to call this The Decision. And we're going to center around how did we get here? The whole process of as we started to age towards retirement, what were the factors of when we want to retire, how we want to retire, our fears of maybe retiring, and the type of thing. I think we do come from very different perspectives on that. So we're going to talk about the decision. So for you, we'll start off with you, and I know you'll throw it back to me. How many years was the process in place to make the ultimate decision?
Yeah, so I think your retirement and my retirement are way two different things, right? Because I know within the teaching, and my wife was a teacher as well, you're looking at to maximize your pension, you're looking at a lot of different factors. For me, the decision basically came when maybe a year before COVID, the VP I was working for, who I really liked, and he was great at what he did, kind of got let go, and he got let go for really poor reasons, mostly political. That's the business world. That's how life goes. And he got let go, and I was like, well, and all of a sudden things started bothering more. Like I was in meetings, and I alluded to this last week, but you start hearing the buzzwords all the time, and they start really bugging you. Like we have to attack the low-hanging fruit, or we need scalability, or we have to become more customer-centric. And I would be sitting in a meeting, and that stuff would start really bothering me and piss me off. It'd be like, people are just trying to make themselves look better so they can
Why? Because of the use of their terminology?
Yeah, but the terminology was it doesn't mean it. Like people are saying it just to say it to look smart, to say, oh, this guy knows what he's, so it wasn't real talk. People just throwing out terms. And again, you kind of have to understand the specific topics that were discussed, but I felt like there was a lot. The point being that stuff started really bothering me. I mean, I never liked the political aspect of what I did, but obviously when you get to a certain level, that's what you have to deal with a lot. And so little things started bothering more after my boss got let go. So when that occurred,
and again, how many years ago was that before you retire?
It was probably 4 years before I actually retired. 4.5. I think COVID was just about to hit. He got let go just before COVID hit, and then when COVID hit, they and all of a sudden things started bothering more or whatever, and I was asked to put together a list of people from my team, and I had a pretty big team from my team who we had to let go, or give me 5 names that if we need to let people go, we're going to let them go. And I said to my boss, I kind of had enough. And I said to my boss at that point, I said, I'm going to make this easy. Just let go of me. I'm good. If you let me go, I get a package. And I felt like I would be all set. And he kind of laughed and he goes, no, I'm not going to fire you. And I go, okay. So then I had to put the names together, whatever, right? So then I started really thinking about retiring. So COVID hit, working from home, and then talked to and fortunately I was in a decent position to be able to retire financially. So I would talk to my financial guy and he would say, yep, you can. But it was a 1 more year syndrome. I kept saying to myself, one more year, one more bonus, one more. And it's hard. It was hard for me to just, believe the financial advisor saying, can I really retire? Can I? And again, my lifestyle isn't extravagant. So given my lifestyle, he said I could. And I was like, well, 1 more year can't hurt. 1 more year can't hurt. 1 more bonus can't hurt. 1 more bonus can't hurt. And I kind of went 3 or 4 years like that. And then finally I decided to retire. But and the final straw, I think, was just I switched jobs in the process too. I went from the same company, but I moved to a different area. And when I moved to a different area, my job became a little less stressful. But that didn't, and at that point, I just think I knew it was time. I wasn't as impactful. I wasn't doing as good a job in my own head, I didn't think. So it was just kind of time to move on. And that was when I decided to retire.
So the number one factor, we've talked about this back when you were doing that. I used to get a kick out of your responses on some of this, but in mine, when we get to me, will be a little bit different. But so the decision of 1 more year, 1 more bonus, blah, blah, blah. So was the whole decision of retirement for you based on finances?
Yeah, a lot of it was. And again, it's always hard to pull the trigger, right? And I know it's different for everybody, but there was also a piece of it that was community too, or friendship, or when I had certain friends at work, there were people that I were pretty close to. So that was always a factor too. Like, what's going to happen when I leave this job? Will I be as friendly as the people I'm still friendly, that I associate with, that I really like on a daily basis at work? Will I not become as friendly? So there was a social aspect to it too, that definitely played in my decision-making process. No question about that.
So the people, when you were with your previous employer, I mean, all these years forward now, how did you deal with the social piece? Do you even see any of them anymore?
Yeah, I do. I mean, and there were 3 or 4 of us that worked really closely together, and we worked together for maybe 30 years as a team, and we did a lot of cool things. And so those people I stay in touch with, and kind of throughout. And I wasn't sure once I retired if that would stay consistent or not stay consistent, and it ended up being pretty consistent, and I'm still very friendly with them. But that was a fear. That was a thought. That was a thought in my thought process of how is that going to change that dynamic? That was important to me in my life and my lifestyle, because we would go out with them as couples. We would do a lot socially with them.
So what was the ended up? What was the final straw that broke the camel's back that you said, yeah, I'm giving? And how long notice did you give?
Yeah, and again, I think I gave about a 9-month notice, and I felt like I wasn't being as effective as I used to be at work, and it was all self-inflicted. I didn't care as much. Like I said before, things started to bother me that never bothered me before. Little things like just somebody not doing what they're supposed to do, or somebody saying something in a meeting, or somebody exaggerating something in a meeting. And what's weird too is during that process, after I gave my notice, it was like a 9-month notice, I started saying what I really felt. I didn't hold back as much. And in a weird way, it actually I felt like people were listening to me more, which was kind of surprising to me, because you think when you let your guard down a little bit, that it can go either way. Like, some people are going to say, well, he shouldn't be saying that. Let's get rid of him earlier. Other people are saying, geez, he has a good point. And when I ended my career, it was more like, oh, he has a pretty good, and they adopted some things that we suggested, and life went on,
So down the end, were you like Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes that I just read a big story on?
Yeah, he just got canned, huh?
Yeah, well, he spoke his mind, and
They
they
yeah.
didn't like hearing it, but
Yeah.
we'll keep that on a different topic.
Yeah.
All right, anything you want to add before I jump in on my journey?
No, does that make sense to you? Like, how do you react to that and I know you're going to go into it a little bit, but how do you react to that journey versus the journey you're about to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of lived your journey. There was one point your wife and I were just like, Jesus, stop talking about retirement, because you're really never going to retire. This was, obviously 5-6 years ago or whatever. But I think my journey was it made sense. I always never totally understood your fear of the finances, because you did well, and you obviously are someone that meets with his financial planner a couple of times a year. I mean, you're not going into retirement blind, so your finance. I always questioned that. In the wow, he never even talks about I'm going to miss the job. This is the first time you really talked a little bit about the social network. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense because of how I know you are. And on the flip side, my journey is entirely different. So I, obviously always looked at my finances, but I probably didn't even think about retirement until maybe 7 years ago, when a lot of things changed in my life, which, obviously factored into my financial stuff. So, get separated and divorced during the pandemic changed the whole picture for me financially, right? So I'm a municipal worker. I'm in, obviously, the municipal retirement pension program, which I obviously got very interested in that once after 20 years or so, I made a decision even if a really good job comes along, unless it pays really good, I'm probably not going to take it. I'm going to ride it out here and get my my 80%, that type of thing. So, you throw a divorce and what that does to finances. I then said to myself, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to retire right away. I've got to, put some things in place or whatever. So obviously the pandemic, which most people know who know me, it's the greatest professional accomplishment I ever had, running a program during a global pandemic, but it was also the hardest time. So then I had to factor in, okay, I'm divorced. I love my job, which is, I think, a little bit different than yours. This job kind of defined me in many ways. And I really needed to make a decision like, wow, retirement's nice, but I love what I do. I love getting up every day. You and I had conversations in the past. On a Sunday night, the way you looked at Monday morning, the way I looked at Monday morning, totally different.
Two different things for our whole career. I mean, I can remember talking to you 20 years ago, and it'd be a Sunday night, and we would be talking about something, or I'd call you up, and I would say, man, another Monday coming. What can you do? And you would say, I can't wait. I can't wait for Monday. And I was like, damn, I wish I had that perspective,
Yeah, and so you have those feelings about the job. But I think two major factors came into play. Well, three major factors. So one is I ended up maxing out on my pension 2 years ago. And I knew this but never really talked about it a lot. I'm up climbing Wire Hill, and I run into...
By yourself or with other
No, I'm by
strangers?
myself.
No strangers?
Well, if you let me finish the story, I can
Okay.
probably do that.
Okay.
So I climbing up the hill, and I run into a guy that was a former board member, not a stranger, former board member. And we're talking. He's like, hey, what are you thinking about doing, blah, blah, blah. And we just talked about it, and, he comes up with the line. He says, wow, you're working for 20% of your pay. Now, I already knew that. I mean, I'm pretty bright on that stuff. But it was really like, okay, at this point in time, even though you love your job, you're working for 20% of your pay. You're trying to maximize, because in my pension program, it's based on your highest last 3 years of earning. So that was one thing that I was like, okay, I probably really got to take a look at, coming up with a timeline, and then go off and do something else within what my pension allows, right? So, I mean, everybody knows I have a basketball training program. I got a consulting business, and I would kind of think about that. But probably two things that really put the nail in the coffin for me was, you have to understand the history of my job. I was hired to advocate for kids, to make changes, to make hard decisions, to bring topics to the forefront that people needed to discuss. And then we got into such a politically correct world 10 years ago that I actually felt I was being silenced, being told, well, you can't really talk about that, or you can't do that. And that was flat out, first of all, wrong. And I wish I had pushed back on that a little bit more, because that's actually why I was hired. And, a lot of families and kids were still looking for me to be the advocate that I was in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. So that was one thing that I said, you know what, I don't know if my voice, I can still have my voice. So that was a problem. And then the second thing was, as you get older, the job that I have, not unlike a lot of people's jobs, but it was becoming physically a hard job to do. And I'm not lifting 100 pounds. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the hours put in, the passion, the emotion that's put in, the amount of, hours, 7 days a week at times, especially crazy during the summer. And that was becoming, for me, harder to do. And because I don't ever want to cheat the system or the community of North Andover, I started to say, I think it's time for me to look at that, someone else has to come in a little bit younger that's going to have that same energy. So you put those things together. And then, I did the math, met with my, financial planner. He looked at different things that I got, rebounded from the divorce to a certain degree financially, and then said, okay, now I got to make a decision. And as everybody knows, the longest notice, okay, so you said you gave 9 months. So I announced it on February 13th of 2025 that I was giving a year's notice. And then that year was I probably, in hindsight, wouldn't have given a year again because it was tough, man. I had to deal with the whole year of he's leaving, he's not leaving, when's he leaving, did he leave already? And then the reality was that last year was really hard because I'm like, okay, I'm really leaving. How do I really feel with that? And then ultimately, now that I'm into the 4th month of retirement, still struggling with that. So our journeys, our odysseys to where we got with this, I think were very different. And I think for me, it wasn't the financial piece. I mean, obviously that plays a part, but for me it was, I've been defined by this job, and reality is, I don't know if I want to leave this job. I don't know if I want to leave everything that I've kind of built with that type of thing.
So retrospectively, would you have done anything differently? Would you, when you look back on how you decided to retire and the steps you took to retire, do you wish you had changed anything? Do you wish you had approached it differently, or do you feel like that your thought process and the steps you took were the correct steps for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think about this a lot. In hindsight, there's certain things I definitely would have pushed back on. Like I lost some of the love and passion when I felt like I was being silent. So I would have pushed back on that, which would have, in a lot of ways, maybe had much more of a smoother transition into retirement from a mental standpoint.
Can you give an example of that? Like, or do you not feel? Do you feel comfortable giving an example of?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give some
back?
broad examples where if there's something going on in town that's affecting families and kids, I have to have the ability in my position to make a stand on that, or make an opinion on that, or bring that issue to light. And a lot of it was, in the old days, the town embraced that. And the reality is the families and the kids still embraced it. It was, from a municipal standpoint, you got to watch what you say. And I wasn't saying anything that would have gotten the town in trouble or anything. It was more just bringing things to light. And I just think in the state of the world, we kind of push things under the rug a little bit, whether it be in my field or education or different things in the municipal government in general. And that was really frustrating. So, but, obviously I lived through that. And then the other thing was that I probably, the divorce is something that's just really hard, right, from a financial standpoint. So if that hadn't been an issue, probably would have retired 2 years earlier. I really would have not given a year's notice. Like I mentioned before, that's one thing I wouldn't have done. It was kind of like the Larry Bird, farewell tour for a year, which was really nice in many aspects. But at the end, it was just time for me to leave because I was exhausted from the tour, basically. So I don't know if I'd do anything really different. I will tell you that in light of the things that I struggle with now, I wish I spent more time because if people that know me, I'm very organized. I think people are shocked that I didn't have an actual plan of when I left. And I think you've said it in a couple of the podcasts, and anybody close to me has said it too, that most people thought I would struggle with going to retirement.
Yeah, I remember you telling me a couple of times that you wanted to retire, but you also wanted to see a couple of projects you were working on out. And I remember saying to you, I go, dude, I think you just got to cut the ties. I think it's going to be hard for you to kind of partially hang on. And you heard me and you listened, but I think it was so hard for you to let that go. You almost took it personally, where I think in my world, I didn't take anything personally. Like things, and again, the business world is so different, I think, in that aspect, because people are always juggling for better positions. They're juggling to get ahead a little bit. So there's always some I don't know, just people out there that kind of want to go after you a little bit, right? So it's more politically charged, I think.
Well, I heard you loud and clear, and I heard a lot of people. And again, some of these decisions were made for me, right? So, one thing that I'm very proud about, this transition plan, which was, I was lucky that the town allowed Joe Augusto, my successor, to work with me for 2 whole months, 2.5 months. So the transition was flawless. It actually, and I don't say this egotistically, but it should be studied, because what him and I did over a course of 10 weeks is actually how the succession plan should take place. For me, though, I'll be honest with you, I'm annoyed. There's a couple of projects that my name is big time involved with since the beginning. So the one is the long-awaited Recplex, which is being built in North Andover, is going to have a shovel in the ground. It was supposed to be this spring. Hopefully by the summertime. That's a project that me and 3 other people in particular were on the ground floor of that in 2014. And then we ran into a pandemic and some litigation and stuff. So for me, I want to be involved with that on a volunteer committee basis to basically I have a lot of knowledge, I have a lot of passion, I have a lot of history with that project. So that was, and then the second one is a tough one because we're doing an expansion for the youth center, long overdue expansion of the youth center. We're bursting at the seams, and the reality here is, the design and everything was preliminary, all done before with input from all of our boards, our kids, et cetera. And I was the architect of that, so would have loved to have seen that finish that project. I'll be happy when it's done for the people that will get to use it. But it was funny, like it kept getting pushed back in the thing. And I remember one of my former board chairmans, Kevin, he made a comment one day like, if we don't get this expansion out, he'll be dead before it's up. And, it's kind of hit hard that, like, I'm probably not going to be around to see that project happen. So, yeah, I mean, I get what you and other people said, like it's better to just kind of step away completely. But I will push back that my position in my history of being the guy that started the youth center is different than all other people that, a project starting after you're leaving or it's in the middle, you'll just leave. So, that's probably more my issue than anything else.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I'm just going to say one thing to clarify, because I know somebody might be saying, well, when I say I gave a 9-month notice, it was only because I was very friendly with my boss. My boss was actually a personal friend of mine. So I told him, I said, I'm this is my plan. We have to have some sort of succession plan as well. And maybe, and determine how we're going to change things and how we're going to see people that we thought were doing good jobs get elevated when I left. And so we started that process. I think that's unusual. I think that most people probably give a lot shorter notice when they're going to retire, because I think you have to factor in when is your next bonus. And if you give your notice prior to the bonus, a lot of times, depending on your relationship with management, they will shortchange you. They can shortchange you in the bonus. So there are a lot of factors that go into it. So I know it's different for everybody.
Yeah, there was a great, it was actually on TV too, it was all over Instagram too, is like that the day and age of giving like a long notice or even at some point a month's notice or whatever is done, because it's almost worked the other way. People have been, I was listening to this woman tell a story that she wanted to give 4 weeks notice. She really wanted to do it, and she told them, and they basically told her to leave today. And it's she lost out on some kind of a bonus like you're talking about. And just to me, I'm like, wow, we've gone away from. I mean, I grew up as you did that. It was just common knowledge. You give 2 weeks notice on any job. My paper route, give it 2 weeks notice, something like that.
Yeah. Yep, that's that. But that's the way it played out for me, and I can see most people not having that advantage of being able to give that long of a notice. And again, did it try to help people and try to help the situation. And again, so I didn't give the global notice, the bigger notice, to maybe a month before I left. But in terms of my management team, my direct management team, they knew 9 months before.
So because finances was one of the big things that you were really deciding, can I do it, can I not, can I pull the trigger on this? Now that you look back now, should you have left earlier?
Yeah, I think I said last week, I think I wish I left maybe 2 or 3 years earlier, right? Because I'm enjoying what I'm enjoying. I enjoy the travel. I enjoy my tubby. I enjoy a lot of aspects of not working. And again, it's I feel like I could have maximized, because I know my health isn't going to last forever, and I know you look at the statistics, and statistically, the healthy years I have left, or a person my age has left, are limited, right? So I wish I had taken advantage of maybe a little more traveling. Maybe I would have gotten into a pattern sooner of being able to take advantage of just my health as I progress in age.
Yeah. I mean, I'll add one thing that at some point in time, you have to remember to do what's best for you. And I think I lost sight of that a little bit. At the end of the day, I was the loyal employee, the passionate guy that, as one guy who used to supervise me a long time ago said, well, he's not going anywhere. He built this place. And I think in a lot of ways, a former guy that I also work with said, it's all, they'll do a retirement party for you, but, they'll already hire the new person. They'll do this. You got to move on. And part of me, I think, struggled with the fact, well, that's not really true. I have had an impact in this town. But what I've realized in a very short period, boy, yesterday's news, definitely yesterday's news.
And I think I learned early in my career that anybody is expendable, but a lot of people don't think they're expendable. And I did come to that realization. Like I witnessed people who, when layoffs were about to occur, would say, well, they're not going to lay off me. I'm working on this very important project. And I'm thinking to myself, there's other people that can run that project. You might be running it, but once you're gone, there are ways to fill in any gap, right? Whether it's a CEO, a CIO, or a VP, or a director, or a manager, or just a worker who knows the systems internally inside and out. You're always expendable, and it's a hard thing to accept. But to your point, once you're gone, I mean, and people were really nice to me when I left, and I had a team of, I had a team of X amount of people, and they were really nice to me. But do I stay in touch with any of those people? Did they miss a beat? No. And I knew at the time, but I can look back retrospectively and say, I knew they weren't going to miss me. I knew they weren't going to miss a beat. I mean, I think they liked me. I think I was, I helped in some situations. I helped them along, but life goes on, and it is what it is. So
yeah, and I think there's a lot of people out there, and I want to get into our next piece on this around struggling with this decision right now. We have a good friend of ours, we mentioned Waterboy, who's retiring this Friday. So it'd be great to get his perspective once he kind of digests this a little bit. But there's a lot of people that, are looking at decisions like, one of our listeners called me and said, you know what, there's a 78-year-old guy in my office. He runs the place. He's not leaving. He loves his job, never wants to retire. So it's obviously a personal decision, and you got to look at everything. You got to look at the finances. Let's be honest, with everything that's going on in the world right now, it's scary stuff.
But I would say that 78-year-old guy, I'm a little jealous of, right? Because I bet it's not financial. I bet he likes going to his job. I bet he feels comfortable in what
Absolutely
he does.
loves his job.
And it keeps him motivated. It keeps him going. And I'm not advocating for anybody to retire. I'm just saying what worked for me and what didn't work for me, right?
Yeah.
I think every individual is different.
So let's talk about those. We'll wrap up this conversation particularly around, okay, there's people that are in where I was 5 or 6 years ago, where you were 5 or 6 years ago. They're not retiring tomorrow like Waterboy, but they're in the process as, geez, I got to start thinking about this. What would be some of your, little tidbits of advice that you would throw out to somebody?
Yeah, I mean, for me, looking back retrospectively, it's the financial piece. It's like, and again, that's very personal for people, and everybody's situation is different, and there's no set amount that you need or don't need. It depends on your lifestyle. It depends on what you want to do. It depends on a lot of X factors, right? So it's very individualistic. But that's where, if you work with a financial advisor, I wish I had listened. I remember he told me 3 or 4 years ago. He said, You're working for your legacy. You're working to give your kids more money. And I'm saying, I don't think so. I go, anything could happen. The stock market could crash. There's a lot of things that could happen. I go, and I asked him, give me what's my worst case scenario? And he shook his head and he goes, you really don't have one. And again, it's not like I have billions of dollars. I don't, right? It's just my lifestyle fits very well into my financial situation. Just fortunate like that, right? So And again, if I wanted to do more, I haven't bought a new car my whole life. You've ridden in my car, right? Nobody likes riding in my car.
It is a sad car, people, by the way.
It's,
Sad car.
I mean, it's a clown car, right? I mean, some of my taller friends come in and they go, "What the heck is this?" You know?
Right. It's good on gas, though.
Yeah, it's like a Fred Flintstone. You know, you put your feet down on the ground, you go as fast as you can. It's a good workout.
But material stuff has never really mattered to you.
No, and it really doesn't. You know, but I still like to live comfortably. I mean, I don't. It's not like I'm living off the grid. You know,
Right.
so I like watching some TV station, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
So
finances is obviously a huge thing people look at. Well, few of our listeners called in and, kind of emotionally talked a little bit about, like, sometimes retirement is forced upon you, whether you lose your job. And as you know, people in our age trying to get another job at this age is not easy, right? So sometimes you're almost enforced to take a package and retire. And then there's a couple of people that chimed in about, like, that, medical stuff dictates some of that, right? So we talked about healthy years. We're talking about people that may be having some medical difficulties right now, and in a lot of ways it may be best for them while they're still fairly healthy to retire and enjoy life a little bit. Do you agree with that stuff?
yeah, of course. And again, it's got to be a personal decision, right? If you have the financial means and you're experiencing health issues, it's got to be a personal decision. I can't make judgment on that, and I don't want to, right? If it's such a personal thing, and it's very individualistic, right? So, and it depends what your goal is, right? Like I think some people's goal is they want to leave a lot of money, but there's a good book out called Die with Zero. Did you read that?
No, you sent it to me.
Yeah, the book's outstanding, right? But again, the philosophy around the guy who wrote the Die with Zero book is to literally die with $0, right? Like, spend it, and he advocates for, if you're leaving your kids money, give the kids money now while they really need it when they're in their 40s and 50s versus when you die and your kid's already 70. I mean, maybe he'll be younger than that, but when your kid's 70 or so, they're not going to need it as much, right? It will be more impactful to them to get it today than it will be 20 years from now, probably, just based on how life, progresses financially for people.
And I'll finish the comment with saying my opinion for those people out there is, really do some deep dive into everything. There's so many resources out there. I can't remember all of the podcasts you sent me, the financial stuff. And I remember saying to you, like, I don't want to listen to another financial podcast about retirement. I want to talk about, like, what's your culture? What's your life like after that? Like, what do you do? How do you, the stuff that I'm kind of struggling with right now. So, neither one of us are experts. We really suggest you guys do your due diligence and find that stuff out and do what's best for you. But I would say don't be too late in starting to think about it, because I do think there's a lot of things that play into an actual decision to retire and all the parameters around that or whatever. So give it some thought. Obviously you'll have, whether it's family members or whoever are helping you with that, but give it some thought and start coming up with a plan, and have control of it, because as we talked about, some people don't end up having control of it.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that too, and again, this is something I've kind of witnessed. It's when people retire, it's not like all your stress goes away, right? I think by definition, people need to manufacture some stress in their life just to keep their brains functional, right? And I think all stress is relative. So you have the grandmother who's not working, home with a spouse, without a spouse, maybe she's living alone, and she spends her day worrying about the grandkids or when she's going to go shopping. Or that stress is as real to her as a surgeon's stress is to performing open heart surgery. I honestly believe that. Or to an air traffic controller bringing in, multiple planes in the course of a day, which is a very stressful job. I think it's important to understand that nobody's stress-free. That's my point. Like, all of a sudden, I felt relief after I stopped working, but is there still stress in my life? Sure. Is there still stress in anybody's life? Absolutely. So I think that's just something I've kind of noticed as I've progressed on this journey of retirement. So.
And I'll finish with that the stress is real. I'll be honest with you. I'll be talking a lot more from my perspective at some point about that. The relief I agree with you. That's to a certain degree. I think you found relief quicker than I have. But yeah, that's the type of stuff. So I hope this kind of helped people a little bit around, kind of getting that decision discussed before you make that final decision, and do what's best for you. Do your homework and get it done. So let's jump into the weekly brewery with Scott Chandler.
Yeah, so last week I did Oak and Iron. I don't think I told anybody where Oak and Iron was.
Could you tell them where it is?
Yeah, that Oak and Iron is in Andover, but I'm not going to do a back-to-back brewery review. So this is so I actually went to Mill 77 this week, right? I hadn't been there before, and heard it was pretty good. Had a couple of friends that went there.
Where is it?
It's in Amesbury. Thanks for asking. Amesbury is kind of an up and coming town, right? I mean, it's always kind of been that way, but I feel like they're doing even more. There's a couple there's another brewery, there's a couple other breweries there, and it's just a nice spot. It's kind of a cool spot. A lot of old mill buildings, stuff like that. So, Mill 77 is by definition is actually in an old mill building, and it was a really cool place. I mean, the beers were really good. I mean, above average. So I think last week I gave Oak and Iron a 3.75. I think that's what I gave it. So I had a couple of beers at Mill 77. Again, I go to the IPAs more often, and one was called Island Time, which was outstanding, and the other one that I really liked was called Nowhere Fast. So those two beers I thought were really good IPAs, right? I actually like the Nowhere Fast a little bit in the Island Time. The Island Time gets rated better, but it was just, to me, tastier and had a little grapefruit taste to it, which was great. So really enjoyed the spot.
Did they serve food, and what's the hours? Are they a 7-day week or just weekends?
No, so they're closed on, believe it, kind of a weird day. They're closed on Tuesdays. I think they're open every other day. Did they have a food truck? They did have some food options, and I forget if it was a food truck or I don't think they cooked it there. So I think there was a food truck out there. I'm not 100% sure. But great spot. So I give the beer like a solid 4. I give it a 4.0, which I thought it was really good. The place itself, it was raining that day, so not out in the patio, but the patio was nothing special, just kind of a cool spot to hang out, just along the street, no great shakes. But the actual brewery inside, old mill building, kind of a cool bar. Very spacious, had some music going, not live music. They had some music playing in the background that was, the 60s, 70s that I like. So it was good. It was a good spot. So I think I give the atmosphere probably a 4.1, and I give the beer a 4.0. I thought it was really good spot.
Awesome. Brewery review with Scott Chandler.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. So actually,
I thought you were done.
Yeah, wishful thinking. So actually, after we had a beer there, there was another brewery called, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Salvaticus. I'm way wrong, but my point being is that brewery didn't have any IPAs, right? And Mill 77 was busy, but it wasn't packed. That other brewery was packed. I mean, so I think people are tending to lean more towards the Pilsners, the Kolsch's, the less high alcoholic beer. So that's just a trend.
Will you be able to adjust?
So I did have a couple of beers at the other spot, and they were really good. But I'm an IPA guy, but I really enjoyed the beers, so I can adjust. But I think I'm always going to be an IPA guy at heart.
All right, thanks. All right, so last week I touched on checking out some rail trails. I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. I know Scotty's going to roll his eyes with this, but for many, many years, like many people, spent a lot of money on buying books. And it, someone that means a lot to me kind of brought it to my attention one day, like, why don't you stop buying books that you're just going to put in some bookcase and, why don't you get familiar with libraries? So I probably haven't had a library card since I was 12. But this past week, I got my library card, and because of the area we're in, I'm part of the Merrimack Valley Consortium, so I can go to 30 different libraries to actually take books out instead of buying books. As well as using the space for some of the writing stuff we talked about. I'm doing so. I've had a couple of good experience with our local libraries. Really big fan of the Nevins Library in Methuen. So I'll be checking out the different libraries as just a place to obviously check out books, but it's also the resources. Like for people our age, big-time discounts on going to museums, big-time discounts on different things with state parks and the like. So I just want to tell people, specifically our age, but all ages, kids all the way up, check out your local library. There's a lot of resources that can help you. And as a retired person, which when I was in there in the morning, it looked like a lot of retired people. But check it out. Check out your local library. They're very helpful. And in our area, this whole Merrimack Valley Consortium, which allows you to go to 30 libraries, is pretty awesome.
Yeah, so we're actually decluttering, right? And that's a painful process. But my point being, one of the main things we have are a ton of books. We have so many books lying around, and they're in good shape, and they're good. And it's how hard it is to. And I know there are places you can donate them.
Donate them to the local library.
Yeah, and we've looked into that, but just massive amount of books. So library probably retrospectively would have been a better call than having 10,000 books.
Yeah, I've been told that I could have saved tons of money over the years and some space in my living arrangements. So kudos to that, and check out your local libraries. Scotty brings the brewery every week. I'll be bringing something unique that's a little bit different for people.
Scotty, since when have you called me Scotty? What's up with that?
The Wildcats will know. Get Scotty a touch was something that was said every night during our basketball games.
Yeah,
so
some people are going to interpret that differently. So.
All right, as we start to wrap up episode 4, I hope we met some needs on this. I want to thank everybody that's been reaching out to both Scott and myself, been reaching out to me through social media around it, giving some good feedback. We are obviously talking about a subject matter that at some point in time, as one person said, well, how much more can you talk about, the retirement process? So we're going to start talking in future. We actually had a very in-depth meeting yesterday out in the sun to basically take a look at, how we look at this podcast of what we want to share and stuff, and expect in the future some different things around maybe some common things that we like to do and talk about those and those experiences, along with still bringing in parts of the retirement stuff. So, Scotty, before we wrap up, anything you want to end with?
Yeah, how about those? I know you're not a sports guy anymore because you alluded to that last week, but how about
Not
those?
as much of a sports
How about those Spurs?
My guys are doing unbelievable. It's going to be a tough series because I think they really expended a lot with beating, which I obviously think the Thunder and the Spurs are the best two teams by far. I think the Knicks are the hottest team right now, but the East was just not the West this year. So we'll see. Wouldn't be even surprised to see if the Knicks beat the Spurs, but I got the Spurs in 6 or 7. I hope it's going to be a great series. Obviously, I love this team. I love everything that it presents, and it's actually fun to watch because the NBA has been taking some major hits, and it continues to. So it's a sport that we both love. That's a level that we both love that has taken some big hits.
Are you gonna buy front row seats for the first Madison Square Garden game? Did you see the cost of those?
Yeah, you said it was something like what?
$139K.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
To sit down.
One ticket.
Yeah, ridiculous.
That's insanity.
San Antonio would be cheaper, by the way. But
my
still,
financial advisor said I cannot afford that.
Yeah, he niched that idea with that.
He did. I was going to sit next to Spike Lee, but I guess that's not happening.
So I will wrap up that people are very excited that Scott, this will be the second episode of Road, has not asked about the time and how much time we're spending on this. We are at about 48 minutes right now, which is what we're trying to do every week. So again, thank you for everybody for listening. I'm Rick Gorman. He's Scott Chandler, and we are off the clock.
Thanks, guys.